current events prophecy message will be kind of a short and simple one, but a good reminder for us is finding joy in troublous times. Joy is one of the marks of a true Christian. When you see somebody going through trying times and so forth, usually the unbeliever gets, doesn't have that comfort and that security. They panic. They're in a really, really dark time in their life. And but a Christian, even during troublous times, when people see that they still have peace of mind and they can still find joy, it's a great witness to other people. And I bring that up because of everything that's going on in the world today. It can get us bitter when we see all this negative stuff, all this anti-American stuff, all this anti-Christian stuff, and it can wear on you over time. And I'm not saying that we should be Pollyannas and always be positive. There is a time for righteous indignation. There's a time to rebuke the wicked, but there's also a time to sometimes you realize that. Many people around us are just deceived. They're lost, they're confused, they don't know what they're doing, and so we don't want to get totally burnt up with anger with family members and friends. I've been getting a lot of emails lately with people saying that their family is like totally split right now. People worried about losing their inheritances and things like that over political and religious squabbles. So things are getting pretty divisive, and again, finding joy in troublous times is a good reminder for us, so we can be a witness for the gospel. Luke chapter 22, verse 34. The best example of finding some kind of a think about everything that Jesus went through, the mocking, the ridiculing, and still we're going to read a verse here, still he was asking the Father to forgive these people. I mean, we're starting to live through a little bit of what he lived through with Black Lives Matter and all these radical leftist groups, and they've taken over many parts of our society, and now we are being mocked and ridiculed by them, called haters, and all these things. But Jesus' example, after everything he went through, it says this in Luke 22, verse 34, "Then said Jesus, 'Father, forgive them,'" now check this out, "'for they know not what they do.' And they parted his raiment and cast lots." So, think about that. The people that are persecuting us today, most of them do not have any idea what they're doing. They think what they're doing is right. They think that Bible thumpers and Christians and pro-American people are the evil people, that we are the problem. And they sincerely think that, because they know not what they do. The same reason Jesus was crucified. It didn't make any sense why he was crucified. It was a mob that called for his crucifixion, and the mob just got bloodthirsty, and all those people were just controlled by other forces. In Acts chapter 7, verse 59, Stephen, when he gave his witness or testimony to the people, it says here, "And they stoned Stephen, calling upon God and saying," and they stoned Stephen, and then he called upon God, saying, "Lord Jesus, receive my spirit." And he kneeled down and cried with a loud voice, "Lord, lay not this sin to their charge." And when he had said this, he fell asleep. Now think about that, getting stoned to death by this raging mob, and still asking God to forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. I know it would be very hard for me to do that. I'd be like, "Lord, bring down the hailstones from heaven and pound these infidels." That's what I'd want to say. But I think when you actually get into the moment, the heat of the moment like that, and the Holy Spirit comes upon you, like many of these martyrs, they have a greater spiritual insight. They're not thinking petty thoughts. They're not thinking selfish thoughts. They have a deep understanding and a care for the people that are deceived. James chapter 1 verse 2 says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations." Now this is a little bit of a different topic, or this applies a little bit differently than people. Well, not really. I guess still, when we get persecuted and we are people are ridiculing us, he's actually telling Christians to be happy about that. It kind of sounds strange. Why would you be happy about people lying about you and persecuting you? That doesn't make any sense. But this is why. Verse 3, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. In other words, God purposely allows us to go through persecutions, or we do a little bit now, but possibly a lot more in the future. And that is for developing us. That's for maturing us, so we can develop patience, love for the people, even though they treat you horribly, and things like that. So you're supposed to be happy when you go through that, because it means God is working on your heart. Matthew chapter 5, verse 11, Jesus says, blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. You racist, you bigot, you homophobe. You hear all those things? Slanderous terms against Christians for wanting to uphold the moral laws of God and wanting to uphold righteousness. Jesus says when they revile you and persecute you for that, you're blessed, because you're going to receive rewards here. In verse 12, he says it right here. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Okay? They've always done it to the righteous people. The righteous people have never been popular with popular culture or society. It's interesting here. He says, rejoice and be exceeding glad. Now that almost sounds, pretty strange too. How could you rejoice, how could you be full of joy and be exceeding glad when people persecute you? The thing is, I guess what I take from this is Jesus is saying, when that happens to you, know that you're on the good side, because it's supposed to happen. If everybody's saying all kinds of nice things about you all the time, then you should probably be sad. Because if the world loves you, Satan probably loves you, and you know where that goes. John 15 verse 10, Jesus says, if you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Now think about that. That's what, I've harped on this so much, basically in about every study, and that's because the church has gotten away from the commandments of God. They preach love, but they don't actually fulfill love as far as obedience to God by trying to obey his commandments. And asking others to try to obey in society, by passing moral legislation and things like that. But anyway, so he says, if you keep my commandments and you abide in my love, I'll go down to verse 11. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Okay, so even in the world, Jesus wants his servants to have joy. I mean, think about this. If you're an unbeliever and you call some Christian a name, and the Christian turns around and says, "You're an effing whatever," that just makes him angry. But if the Christian turns over and smiles at him, says, "Hey, man, I love you," or whatever, something, then it's hard for. Then they're like confused. What do I do? It's going to leave a mark on that person. More than likely. It might not convert them, but it's going to do a lot more good than if he remembers somebody just turning around swearing back at him. That type of thing. Again, I'm not saying that there's not a time for righteous indignation and we should just all be a bunch of, fluffy, fragrant flowers wherever we go. Because Jesus also said, be the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its savor, it's good for nothing. But I guess that was a really short message. I just wanted to bring that up because it's a good reminder for the times we're in now, and times that we're likely headed into, to not let this stuff make us bitter and angry. We know where we're going, and we know where they're going, and if anything, we should be sad knowing that we know where they're going, and try to have compassion for them even when they're persecuting us. It's very hard to do, but nevertheless, that's what should be on our mind. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that? Questions or comments?
Yeah, I was watching, I don't know if you saw after the Republican convention got over on Thursday, a bunch of senators and people that were there at wherever, I don't know if it was from the White House or wherever they were leaving from, but they were walking. I don't know, I don't quite understand why there wasn't some security, but I don't know. But they were leaving the building and they were going to like their hotels or something, and they were just surrounded by the mob, and they were screaming at them, and it was just ugly. They were in their face and just most ugliest screams, and and I was just like angry watching it. I was like, if that was me, I would be like, because they'd get right in their face and stuff. I mean, I was like, why aren't they like punching them in the face? And it's like, you don't have to let them get that. I don't know. My feeling was I was just angry, but the senators all just kept very calm, and they didn't say anything back, because they're yelling at them, say her name, and I just thought it was all along what you're saying here is that they just kept it cool. They just kind of kept a calm aura about them and handled it properly. I think if I would have been there, I think I would have escalated it. And but it's just that mob thing that you're talking about. The locusts.
Yeah.
They can't even walk out of a thing, and then you're just attacked. And it's hard to be joyful and forgive.
Right. That was Rand Paul.
Yeah, there was a couple other ones too. There was a black senator too that I saw, and a couple other ones that same exact thing happened, and the police had to have their bikes and like make a wall to protect them.
Yeah, if you think about it, most of the Christians a lot of Christians throughout history have been killed by mobs, that type of thing. And Rand Paul thought, he said he seriously thought he probably wasn't going to make it. He probably wasn't going to live through that. I mean, those mobs get so dangerous so quick, and they're just they get to be so evil, and nobody thinks rationally.
Yeah.
And it's, the Republican convention as a whole, actually, I thought despite all the hatred that's coming from the left, this anti-American hatred and rioting, and you know what I mean, the Democrat Party, they stamp love on everything they do, but all they do is hate. They hate everything. They hate their own lives, and they're not happy people, and so forth. But anyways, where was I going with this?
The convention.
Yeah, the Republican convention, it was really positive. They really focused on positive things. They showed legal immigrants taking the oath of citizenship. These were people from all over the world that were coming, but they were coming here legally, so they showed how you do it properly and things like that. And it was really neat to see the ceremony. They were supposed to renounce any allegiance to foreign powers, and that's how it should be done. Not just breaking in here and having no allegiance to America and taking and stealing and robbing just for yourself. It was really nice to see the Republicans be really positive. Again, I'm not promoting that we we say love, love, love all the time, but we can't let this stuff burn us up, give us an ulcer, But
2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 10, 11, 12. I'll just read part of 10. Because they did, this seems more like it's for today almost, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, and they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. It's kind of like he's talking about today.
Right, that's exactly what they have pleasure in.
2
Thessalonians
2:10, you said?
Yeah, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, that perfectly describes
Strong delusion.
perfectly describes a strong, because they have pleasure in doing unrighteousness.
Yeah, that's why I sit there and think, I'm like, and I know people that are decent people, smart people, and they're totally, the only way they can be the way they are is because there's a delusion over them, because
Right.
they're just not thinking clearly. They're, you know, they're promoting wildly, you know, they're like, well, this is
And
a
God
good
sends
thing.
them this delusion. That's
Right.
what's really weird.
And the difference between a Christian and one of them, obviously, you know, when you get into sin, you keep sinning more and more. But, you know, we commit unrighteous acts, you know, on a somewhat of a regular basis. Everybody does somehow, but we don't have pleasure in our unrighteousness. We feel bad when we do that. You know, there's a conscience there. We know it wasn't right, and we struggle, and we want to do what's right. But they don't care. They actually enjoy doing evil.
And I remember you spoke about this a couple of weeks ago or whatever, and I'm thinking, why does God do this? Why would he? It doesn't seem fair or whatever, but at the time, the way you described it, and when we looked into it, it was a punishment basically for them not believing in God or not serving God. It's
Yeah.
a punishment that's almost like now they get to wallow in their filth and their sin.
Right, it kind of reminds me of, you know, parents, you ever hear stories where their kid got caught smoking a cigarette or something and their parents made them smoke a whole pack.
Right.
You want to smoke them? Here you go. see how that feels, you know, or whatever. Anything else?
You were like, well, why would he do that? Well, even in like Romans 28, chapter 1, verse 28, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God just gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. He probably just got sick of them constantly turning them away and constantly, you know, not following the commandments, that he's just like, fine, just, you know, whatever.
What was that one again?
Romans chapter 1, 28.
That's a good point. Yep.
Those
Because
scriptures I want to memorize.
they'll punish themselves.
It explains a lot.
If he lets them go, they'll punish themselves in a way that will bring them down to a low point, hopefully, and come back. That's kind of the hopes. They go all the way down. That there's no further to go.
It
But
just seems like now we're getting closer and closer to where people are gonna just say this whole thing is
Hate speech.
non-believable, it's made up. I mean, there's just so much information that people look up on the internet and just believe whatever they see. This is gonna be next, and then you just have no.
Romans 1 what?
right, yeah. Ultimately, they hate America. Well, they already are. In Portland, they were burning Bibles and American flags.
Oh, and a
But
Trump supporter just got shot last night just for walking down the street in
What?
Portland.
the Patriot prayer hat
Yeah.
on or something. Yeah, unfortunately, it's probably going to get a lot worse. Other